we have this kind of time carved out. I could do a live build and create a snippet for this for you right now. That might be kind of cool. Let's do that. This will be fun. Live build. Let's do it. So this is going to be purely the Xano side of things. So I know we sent a couple of videos that explain pieces of it. There'd still be pretty minimal configuration to do to get it to what we want. But let's just go ahead and do one-time password text. I'm going to start with this snippet as my baseline, just so you can see the flow of how you would add a snippet. You'd go to the snippet page, add instance, go to your instance, and then you'd want to go to your actual workspace you want to add it to, purchased. We want SMS Magic Link with Twilio. So we will use this as our foundation here. So this is going to give us some things to work with. We have 3 API endpoints, 1 database table, which will be our users, some functions, and environment variables. So we have the API endpoints they gave us, and then also some environment variables. Now, the first thing I want to focus on here is actually going to be the environment variables, because we'll need to work with Twilio so we can actually use their API, right? Because they're a texting service. We won't need to use this Magic Link redirect URI or Magic Link JWT secret, because that is just for Magic Link, right? So let's go to Twilio. And you might have used Twilio before, but they take you through a nice wizard to get started. It's pretty easy. You'll get a from number that we just need to paste into Xano. And then also our account SID. And then also our Twilio auth token. Okay, great. So let's save that for now. Let's jump to the API here. So we really only need to focus on these top 2 ones. Get Magic Link SMS. So this is actually going to be what we're going to use to request the code. Remember, we're talking Magic Link, but we're going to change this all to code. And then this one, we're going to actually log in. So we're going to have to do some changes here. So first and foremost, you can see what this is set up to do is take in the phone number, which is what we want. And then it generates the Magic Link, which we're not going to want. Looks like we're just looking up the user by that phone number, and then we're actually sending that text message. So that Twilio information, we're using it for this API call, which is just send Twilio. But let's go back and let's start manipulating this to actually work with one-time code. So I'm going to delete this function here. We don't need that. Let's create a new function here, and we'll say code generator. All right, and I'm going to go add a new function in here. We want generate random number. And we want minimum to be, let's see here, what's the smallest 4-digit number? 1000. And then the biggest is 999. Call this random code. And let's change this response here. And you can see when I run this, we're going to get some random numbers each time. Great. So that is our random code generator for 4 digits. Of course, if we wanted to make it 6 or whatever, we would just change the min and max there. Pretty easy. Great. So let's publish these changes. Okay. And so we have our random number. Let's go back into here and let's add that random number generator. Custom functions. We have our code generator here. Let's go ahead and drag this up, and we'll call this our code. Okay, so we get our code. Let's change this precondition here. Let's make sure that the code actually exists, not equal to node, or not equal to null. We'll say error message here, code couldn't be created. Okay, save. I still like this lookup user. Let's also do, let's see here. Well, I guess that depends on the flow that would make sense here. So if a user enters in their phone number or someone comes in and adds a phone number that, doesn't exist, you could either have your front end just say like, if we found that number, we sent a text, or you could have this throw an error. But some people like different flows for different reasons. So we can either set a precondition here after get user. I'll add one in here, and then you can choose to hide it or not, depending on what kind of flexibility you like there. So my precondition is under utility functions. So we'll make sure that we'll just say our user is not equal to null. And this will sort of be an optional precondition. That number doesn't exist in our records. Some people might not like this flow, so we'll just kind of leave it in here. We might hide it and turn it on if you want. And now we have, let's see. Okay, so this is the function that will send the text message. So it'll grab that user's phone number from the database if it exists. And then we might say, this is your code. And we'll use variable text substitution, to insert that actual code there. So let's go ahead and save that. Okay. So, we're on the right path here. So I'm going to publish these changes for now. Let's go ahead and look at this endpoint. So first endpoint we just looked at, user enters their phone number, generates a random number. Let's just click on here again, checks to make sure the code exists, looks up the user based on the phone number entered. We have an optional precondition to either force stop if that number doesn't exist already. And then we'll send the Twilio SMS to the number associated with the user in the database with the message, this is your code. Of course, that message is completely customizable. So once the user gets the code, right, they'll come back to your app. They'll have somewhere where they need to enter in the code. So let's actually delete this, make a new input here. We'll call this code. And then this code, basically, we'll have to do some manipulation here, but we'll verify that the code is correct. We'll also need to verify or do some things in the database. Passes all that, we create the authentication token, and the user is authenticated. So first thing here, we don't have magic token as an input anymore. We have code. We'll say code is required. OTP code is required, but was not provided. Okay. Let's see. We don't need this at all. That's decoding a magic token. Let's see. This we don't need. Okay, get record from user. We will need to do this. So the way this is set up, it is to go look through the user for decoded magic tokens. So what we actually want to do here So I guess ideally at this stage, we probably also need a way to associate the code with a specific user. So you probably here also need the phone input, and whether ideally ideally the front end just passes it to this endpoint as well, but that will be required. There needs to be something in the database that says this user is that person. Now, from that other screen, go ahead.
One quick comment. Yeah, one quick comment. A recent Adalo update is or was they now exposed the user ID. So each row has yeah.
So let's do that. We'll do the user ID. That's even better. Okay, so we'll do the user ID and we'll use that user ID as the input. Okay, that's great. Okay, so now you can see there's some preconditions here. So we actually, what we want to do, and we'll actually have to go back to that other API endpoint, I think I'm realizing, to do some more manipulation. But we want to actually store our code in a object like this. So you can see this one's token, expiration, and if used. So we'll use that same format. We'll do an object here, and we'll just call this maybe OTP code. And in here, we'll have the actual code. We can do a timestamp for expiration. And then we can have a Boolean for used. So in this format, there's a code. It's only good for a certain amount of time, and it can only be used one time. So let's get rid of this. You don't need Magic Link here. So as I said, we actually will need to want to set these things, which we'll actually want to go back to our first endpoint here to do so. So you can see there is the code generator. We get the user. So we might actually, this might be in our favor to turn this precondition on, because we're going to edit that user's record. So we'll go ahead and say user.id, and we're not going to edit the phone, but we're going to edit this information here, the OTP code. So the code we already have, this Boolean will be false. And the expiration, so let's go ahead. I'm going to actually set this in a separate variable just so it's easier to manipulate. So we'll call this expiration of code. So we can start with the timestamp of now. And then what I like to do is use transform timestamp. Actually, yeah, let's do transform timestamp because we can work with relative time in Xano. And we should be able to say plus 1 hour. I think that's all we need there. So that'll take the timestamp of now. It'll add 1 hour. So this code will be essentially be good for 1 hour. We could manipulate that pretty easily if we want to, but let's just use that as a baseline. And we'll call that expiration of code. Okay, great. So once again, we'll just, upon requesting the code, we'll put that code in the database with that specific user. We'll have an expiration time on there, and we'll set the Boolean of used to false. I'm going to publish those changes. Let's come back into here now. And let's make sure that that is in our response. Okay. So let's change these preconditions here. Let's say that we want our user dot OTP code dot code should be equal to our input. Okay, that's the first precondition, and we'll say incorrect code. Please request another one. We have the precondition for expiration. So that's going to be OTP code. So expiration must be greater than now. So the time that it is now must be before the expiration. Okay, so that was correct. Time's always a little confusing there. But yeah, so we're storing that expiration in the database. That's what this is. We're saying that time must be in the future. And we'll say code has expired. And then we just want to say here, OTP code used equal to false. And we'll say the code has already been used. Please request another one. All right, all those checks go through. We will create an authentication token. Make sure this is the right user table, because I know we had another one. And then what we'll do here is we want to basically say, this should now be true. And I think what I actually need to do, I need to create this object, because we do full object replacement. And actually, scratch that. I'll just do it this way. So this is input code. Actually, I can just get this all from the user object. OTP code dot code user dot OTP code dot expiration user, and then used, we update that to true. Okay, so let's publish that, and let's go ahead and test this out here. So I'll just say Michael. Let's go ahead and put in my phone number here. And let's go to our API. Let's first request it. Okay. Hopefully I should be getting a text, and I have. My code is 7929. Let's go here. User ID 1. 7929. And there is our authentication token. So we are now authenticated. So this allows me to be quote unquote logged in. So I can take this token and, for example, let's go ahead and add just the auth.me endpoint as an example. So I should be able to put this token in and see my information. Oh, field value is our auth ID. And there it is. All right. So we have built one-time password, and let's actually rename this auth TP code SMS. Push that name change, and OTP code login SMS. Yeah, so there you have it. That's how you can do that with you know, a one-time password and Twilio. What I'll do is I'll put this in a snippet and you can install it directly into your Xano workspace.